Today I'm going to talk about how your psychology can affect your body and your body health. You have the power to create a relationship that is positive between your mind and your body. Your body and your mind don't necessarily always work together. And creating a bridge between your mind and your body can often be one of the most liberating things that you can do for yourself. The body actually has very simple needs. It needs adequate sleep, it needs water, it needs good food, it needs movement, and it needs love and connection. So let's just think of the body as your vessel, as a car, as a machine that needs these things, these requirements in order to operate very well for you. However, the body has an innate intelligence and a beauty of its own, which we'll talk about more later. Often we can think about our needs from the body in a very simple manner. Don't get too tired, don't get too hungry, don't get too bored, don't get too lonely, and actually don't get too scared. Because fear is innately connected to the mind and the old patterns of survival, the body will also need to be in this kind of relaxed state, being assured from the mind that it's in a safe position. The mind has different concerns, and often there are more needs from the mind. They are often more complicated and generally harder to fulfill.
Your mind isn't always describing reality very clearly. Sometimes it has a warped view of your current situation, or perhaps a more dramatic or extreme version, often imbued with certain negativities. It's hell-bent on protecting you and problem solving. The funny thing is, it goes round and round to keep repeating that very problem which you want to alleviate.
This is because the mind has been engineered to seek the love and approval that it believes it needs in order to survive in the world. Therefore, your particular conditioning, your personality, derives very much from this initial need and from your childhood. Later in life, when you develop a better relationship with yourself and perhaps you go through a period of growth and maturity, you start to understand that actually many of these seemingly crucial demands of the mind are not as needed, and you can fulfill these requirements for yourself. And often we can see that the disconnection between the mind and the body can come to a head. A person can have a crash or a burnout, which is something that I personally experienced. They can become ill, sick, or certain conditions can arise because of this disjointed nature inside the self, where the mind and the body are no longer speaking. Or perhaps somebody hasn't ever listened or known really how to connect with the body.
There's a plane coming overhead. I don't know if you'll see it in the camera. So blessed to be able to sit and do some kayaking when years ago I couldn't even get out of my house.
Let's look at a couple of the personality types or the behaviour traits which can often deplete the body or can override your connection with your bodily needs. Firstly is the high achiever. So somehow along the lines you've been geared to being very productive, and achieving is a really important part of your life. This personality type or this trait is actually really heavily backed up by society. This kind of trait will mean that you're really addicted to doing and getting things done and striving, being determined. It's a great tool, it's a great way to be, but left unchecked and not in balance with your body means that this can actually lead you into quite a sticky situation, because you're following the demands of your mind here very much, and you're thinking often very future focused about the next thing to do and the next thing to do and your list and all of the jobs that you never seem to get done, and also where you want to be. And it can be used in a great way for coaching. However, it's about the balance and using your adapted, kind of conditioned self with awareness. When you're constantly looking to achieve as your base reaction to life, it can become very exhausting. Something else which can tire you out, or which can mean that you lose connection with your own core, is being a helper or a rescuer type. So the emphasis here isn't so much about the productivity and the goal, it's more about the other person, and it's about how you respond and how you define yourself. So the helper and the rescuer has a position where they define themselves based on the other. So the helper defines themselves based on if they're making the other person happy. The helper becomes disattached from the body because they are concentrating on the other person, and often the other person's feelings and their demands. It's like they can read into what's required, often from an environment where they've needed to pick up and assist their own parents or something in their childhood. That because the value comes from doing this for another, the attention is channeled elsewhere, and this of course can't end up in a good position in the end for the person, because the needs are always inside the self, and the responsibility is always for taking care of the self rather than another. It's very different to being caring and being able to offer what you do have for somebody else. Again, the attention is to be brought back to the self, so the attention is on the body and the core, whilst watching your reaction in terms of that desire to take care of, because it's not always appropriate to go ahead and get involved in that behaviour. So another way of being which seems really fun and is also promoted or quite celebrated in society is being an adrenaline seeker, or somebody that likes to have constant pleasure. And it can be similar to the achiever, although the achiever doesn't necessarily need to have a pleasure aspect or an adrenaline aspect. They just need to be producing and achieving to a certain level. The adrenaline type wants everything done tomorrow, and again has a long list often, and it's really the idea that actually everything that is done or experienced is done with adrenaline. There isn't this sense of calmness inside. It's all heightened and very fast, and often this can become addictive and lead to desires of creating more adrenaline or overstimulating type situations, because it's very enticing and distracting to be involved in things that constantly give us a high. But again, sometimes that can lead us away from ourselves. It can be led up to the mind and out of the body, as opposed to doing it while we're actually feeling these experiences in the body. Because of course that's when we know if we've had enough, but we don't know if we've had enough if we're coming up and out and living through the mind with this adrenaline experience. And often adrenaline isn't as needed as we think. We can still do a very highly stimulating activity, but the need for this kind of chemical in the body isn't so great. And often we can do it in a better type of way. Another trend which can deplete our body's vital force is to have anxiety or trauma. The interesting thing about the anxiety is that when we start to look at some of the personality conditions or the behaviour traits, some of those traits in themselves actually lead to anxiety. When these feelings are left unprocessed or unhealed, that in itself can also lead to some of these behaviour traits, but also this trauma or this experience in the body can propel us to distract and to pull experiences to ourselves which keep us outside of ourselves slightly, or generally distracted from living in our house. And living in our house and in touch with our material means that the difficult darker, the material that perhaps we've repressed is kept safe because we don't actually go there. So again, though, long term, this is going to be a difficult position because you're still not living quite concretely inside your vessel. Also, you could have particular anxiety complexes. It could be a phobia or a fear, or it could be linked to a core belief that you have about something being dangerous. That in itself is obviously, again, from the mind, and that can lead to a drain on the body. So dealing with that, ending that, means that the body is then able to settle. And then we have the perfectionist type. Again, this can be linked closely to the achiever as well, but the perfectionist really is hell-bent on getting everything right. And we can see certain OCD traits as well that come hand in hand with perfectionism. And it's really hard to keep your world perfect or at such a high level of expectation. This again has a deeper desire for protection and obviously to seek safety in the world. So you can see there's a theme here, because all of these ways of being that we have in our personality are linked to feelings that are deeper down inside our body. So now we've learned a little bit about the body and the mind, and we've learned about how our personality can affect our physical being. How can we begin to create a better relationship between mind and body? Well, the crux of it is self-awareness. So self-awareness and mindfulness is going to give you that space in order to view yourself, paying attention literally to your body. So it's like your attention moves from the headspace, and perhaps it can go up there again, or there's times that we're aware that it's really busy up there. But the more that we develop this presence and awareness inside the body, it's literally shifting your attention and your awareness to your body, so that when you're talking to somebody and your mind is caught up in a particular fear that perhaps has been there for a long time, the attention is not only in that space, because you can't stop that, you're processing it and you're looking to grow through it. That means it's still going to come up until the energy has come out of it. But there's an extra thing you're developing, which is the presence, your core and your attention, and it just becomes a feeling inside your being. Pay attention to both yourself and another person, and you can pay attention to your center and how your body's feeling and what your mind's doing, and even what the mind is creating now in the body. Perhaps it's some anxiety, an uncomfortable feeling. Perhaps things are starting to go very fast. And this also leads us to a really kind of crucial, fundamental aspect of health in the body, which is the maladaptive stress response. So the maladaptive stress response is based on many of these things I've talked about, which is core beliefs, personality, ways of being. Many things will set off your maladaptive stress response, and it does begin in the hypothalamus, and that's where even our core beliefs and our filters about life begin to affect our biology, our chemicals, which then lead into a response where the brain goes a lot faster, and this is what we see in anxiety. And from that point forward, our whole body shifts. And the reason I'm so interested in this particularly is because there's a common link between ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, many types of conditions that can deplete the body when this access, if you like, between the hypothalamus and the adrenal gland is in overdrive. And there's something you can look up called Mickle therapy, that Dr. Mickle coined, and he says it's like going into hypothalamitis. So if you're in an experience in life that's really stressful, perhaps you're going through something really difficult like a divorce or a job change, you can find that this stressed state comes up in your life, and it's harder to become relaxed, and then this position in itself can become longer and longer, and we end up in what's called a generalized anxiety state, where the world is no longer particularly safe, or you can't get back into your relaxed mode. Promoting a calm nervous system, which generally can sometimes only happen when we've healed or worked on either from the mind, so either from the mind or through the emotions, because often we can get to them from different levels, then everything can calm down. There are a few other things which can help you, and that is further analysis. So analysis of your particular personality. Some people aren't too keen on that avenue because they say it's long-winded, and the quickest way to get there is through your emotions and your feelings in the body. And I do agree that in any one moment there is a pocket of everything that's ever gone before. So your childhood and the patterns that have been with you throughout your life. The moment is the pocket where it actually it shows us everything. However, sometimes I've found that there can be great benefit from also working with further analysis of the self. Coming to identify your personality types and your ways of being and the traits means that you get to know them really well, so that when they come in, you can straight away name them and go, okay, and it can be easier even for the mind and the body to settle as you name them, and then you put them aside or you move through it. Of course, as I've mentioned, being with the feelings is a direct link to your body because that's where it's happening. And the feelings will be describing or showing you where it's coming from or where it's starting in the mind. Inner child work, particularly with anxiety and trauma from childhood, will help you to identify and speak with these long-held fears. And the mind also needs reassurance. Body work is another great way to start listening to and connecting to your body. Movement, physical exercise, and any types of body work that are going to help you build a greater relationship with your body. Often the mind is running the show. Do we want it to always be running the show of our life? When we operate from the body, things are often simpler, and we can actually calm the mind down through being connected to our body. There are around 4 different types of tiredness that I'm aware of: emotional tiredness, mental tiredness, physical tiredness from literally not enough sleep, and environmental tiredness, where things are, perhaps we're bored or we're doing the same thing for too long and we haven't had enough input in our life, enough change. And mental tiredness obviously is, being involved in too many mental tasks and activities and replaying things and doing mental tennis around and around in our mind. Emotional tiredness is because we're literally stuck in some feelings that perhaps we're not moving through. The body has wisdom. There is a body mind. You can explore feeling into your body and what it's saying to you. It's an unspoken language, remembering that it doesn't work in thoughts. So when you start to explore this body relationship, like when I explored it, it was hard for me to get in touch with because the mind is louder, right? And it seems like its demands are more important. But the body is quiet, and it will speak to you through its feelings and its reactions to things and people. It will talk to you through physical feelings, and one of those physical feelings might be tiredness, or it might be a feeling like it needs to move more. And it's like tuning into a new radio dial and exploring the desires from your body and what it needs.
Taking the action that you need is what changes the situation. In order to get in touch with the place you need to be so that you can begin to turn things around, you need to fully feel everything you're currently experiencing rather than looking to the past and projecting to the future. So that also means feeling anything that's pretty rubbishy and stuff you've been trying to avoid.
Another simple thing you can really do is to hold attention in your core, somewhere in your body. Place attention in your body or your legs. And when you're in a moment with somebody else, or like I'm doing this video, again, bring the attention to what your body's doing and how it's feeling whilst you're speaking or whilst you're doing something, because this will show you your body experience in the moment, and you will see whether things are moving fast or what your breathing's doing, and this will really give you a snapshot of whether you are tiring your body out in that moment or whether you're working with it. Actual behaviour in your body in any one moment will lead you to see whether you're bringing energy in or using up a lot of energy.
For around 3 to 4 years, I didn't think I'd be able to go up steps like these again, and I certainly didn't think I'd be able to run up them, which I now can. Change is available, and it's slow, and the mind likes to think that things are quick, and it doesn't often look at the small little steps that have happened. So reward yourself and continue to grow with the changes that you make. It's so quiet here. Not really that quiet. There's always someone around in the world.
If you're interested in this kind of subject matter, then I'm actually holding a workshop, I believe it's July the 7th, and this is for people that have had problems in their body, may have been labelled with things such as ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia, hypermobility syndrome and fibromyalgia.
Do you know what I say? Fuck ME. Fuck chronic fatigue syndrome. Fuck POTS. Don't let anyone tell you what is going on with your body. You like that? That's part of my motivational video. That was funny, wasn't it? That was like an advert.
Have a good day inside your body. Goodbye.